Well, howdy do, buckaroos. How the heck are you? I am live here at the Beer Whisperer Pub with Jeff Lyons. And this is one we wanted to do because, I don't know, I guess just shy of a year ago, I guess, Jeff and I started a Facebook group called Drinkin Whiskey. Now, Jeff's not a big whiskey drinker, but he had some interest in learning about whiskey. So him and I started the group together. Um, but I really wanted to do one of these videos or one of these pub sessions with Jeff to just kind of talk about whiskey a little bit. So, Jeff, what are you drinking tonight?
Well, at the moment, I'm drinking. Here you go. This is something called Alberta Rye. It's out of Canada, and it's actually what it is. It's a blended whiskey, and from what I read, they took one batch of whiskey that was 12 years old and one batch of whiskey that was 6 years old, and blended them together, and that's what we came up with. And so I poured it into this glass, this Canadian club glass, and I put a little ice in it, and it's a handsome looking, amber color, and it really, I had it the other day. It's quite an enjoyable beer. It's kind of mild. I think, real sweet and malty, and I'm enjoying it. I mean, I really liked that the one I had from Knob Creek a week or so ago, that was done with, I think, maple.
The smoked maple, yeah.
Oh, smoked, yeah. That was really good. But this one's not bad. It's easy to drink. Plus, it was less than 20 bucks.
Well, that's good. Canadian whiskey tends to use a larger rye bill, whereas bourbon has to be 51% corn. Most Canadian whiskeys use rye as the main grain. So, and that's the biggest difference. What I'm drinking tonight is the classic Wild Turkey 101, and I've got it served two ways for me. The reason I bought this bottle was because my wife found this neat old Wild Turkey highball glass.
You can use that
I
for a
want to serve a classic highball. So I've got the turkey, and I'm doing it with ginger ale, and I've got a Bundaberg ginger ale. If you've ever had this Bundaberg, it's just one of the best ginger ales on the market.
Never seen it. Never seen it. So you could use that glass as a Kolsch glass too,
Yeah, you could, because it's yeah, kind of I was going to say cylindrical, but it's more square, but it's kind of a square cylindrical kind of thing going on. But I think I will. I've also got some poured on the rocks. I couldn't find this glass right away, so I poured some on the rocks. So I've got Wild Turkey rocks, and I got Wild Turkey as a highball.
I had this great Erdinger Kolsch glass, which broke, unfortunately. It was my favorite glass for drinking Kolsch's. But anyway, we're talking about whiskey.
Yeah, I've got I guess back about the summertime, my wife found a Miller 64 glass, but it's long and cylindrical like a Kolsch glass. I used it in a video for a Kolsch, and I got a thumbs down on the video. I wasn't sure if it was for the beer or if it was because of the glass I used. They didn't say.
Well, I mean, glassware, I mean, it's, you and I are big into beer, and we're talking about whiskey now, but you and I are both big into beer, and we both, I'm sure, I know I do, and I'm sure you do too, think about the type of glassware to use for the beer, because we know certain styles like certain beers, or certain beers like certain glassware, just to bring out the aroma, bring out the flavors, etc. And in one sense, it makes us both sound like a couple of geeks, beer geeks. But at the same time, it's kind of like, well, I can understand why I want to drink an IPA in this glass. I want to drink a stout in this glass. I want to drink an Abbey ale in that glass, because the aromas come out.
The funny thing is whiskey's a lot the same way. I'm actually doing this one wrong. This is actually an old-fashioned glass that I'm using on the rocks. You typically use a smaller glass, but I had this one handy, and I kind of like the glass. But for a highball, I am using the correct glass. This would be a tall highball glass.
The only reason I've got this Canadian Club glass is because a couple of weeks ago I bought a gift pack. It was Canadian Club whiskey, and
nice.
With it.
So you are actually using proper glassware for whiskey on the rocks.
Yep, that's true. Except the rocks have already melted.
See, that's why I like these. My wife got me this mold set. They had these. You do the six. It's a mold for 6 of these large square cubes.
So, but I mean, I'm starting to really kind of, I don't mind whiskey I think for someone like me who's been a craft beer fan for 30 plus, almost 30 years now, whiskey seems like the natural kind of evolution for me because of the malt characteristics that come in whiskey. And certainly whiskey has heavier alcohol content, got a lot more punch to it and whatever. But at the same time, when you really think about it, it has some of the same characteristics as a good beer.
Well, yeah, especially when we're talking about, I mean, there's a lot of small distilleries these days. There's a lot of local distilleries, a lot of boutique distilleries. You and I were talking about this the other day with Red. I mean, I've got it right here in Springfield, Missouri. I've got Missouri Spirits House that's doing their own thing here. So, you have a lot of craft distilleries like craft beers.
And I still need to look around to see if there is a whiskey distiller in New England. As you know, I'm the New England beer reviewer. I review beers from New England. I focus on beers from New England. And I do know there's a vodka place in New Hampshire. I'm sorry, Vermont. And there's a rum place in New Hampshire. And I'd like to I need to really do some research. And maybe someone who might be watching this or might be checking this out later might be able to let me know. But I wonder if there's a whiskey distiller somewhere in New England, because I'd like to try their beer just simply because of my whole New England,
Yeah, I'm sure you got one somewhere, but we are talking about whiskey or going to be talking mostly about whiskey for this session. But since you brought it up, I do want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
You have had New England beer reviews or NEBR for several years now.
Yeah.
And so tell me how you came up with the name.
Well, it's funny because when I first started my beer reviews back in 2010, it was actually almost just over 6 years ago. It was January 16th, 2010. I had this bizarre nickname on YouTube, Jeff O. Lehane, which was kind of a variation. My name is Jeff Lyons, but I kind of took this variation of the Celtic version of Jeff Lyons and turned it to Jeff Lehane. It's hard to explain, but when I first signed up for my YouTube page back in maybe 2006, it was called Jeff O. Lehane YouTube. And so my first, 6, 10 maybe or so reviews were Jeff O. Lehane's reviews. I looked at that, I was like, what the hell am I saying? No one knows what the hell that name means. So I finally kind of said to myself, I knew from day one when I first started doing my beer reviews, I always focused on New England beers. So maybe 5 or 6 or 7, I don't know how many reviews in, I kind of said, I'm going to start talking about New England beer reviews. I still used the word Jeff O. Lehane for a while, but then it was like Jeff O. Lehane's New England beer reviews. So I did that for a while. Then come around about, July or August of 2010, I finally decided to just call myself New England Beer Reviews because it made sense. I focus on beers from New England, and nobody else does. And so I said, I'll just call it New England Beer Reviews. So I went with New England Beer Reviews for a year or two. Sometime in 2012, I think it was, because my background's in public relations and marketing. So you're always looking for a catchphrase and things that'll kind of people might remember or whatever. So I kind of thought to myself, New England Beer Reviews, NEBR, NEBR. New England Beer Reviews, NEBR. So finally, I started doing these. I finally shortened it up and said NEBR, New England Beer Reviews, and that's kind of stuck since about 2012 or so.
So let me ask you another question. You came up with that idea on your own, or did somebody give you the idea?
No, it was my idea. I always wanted to do New England beers because back in 2010, there were nowhere near as many beer reviewers as there are today, and I was kind of inspired, for lack of a better word. I watched a lot of Chad's beer reviews when he first started out. I watched some of Joe D's reviews. He's out of California. I watched some of Lee's reviews out of Nova Scotia. Calls himself Howgley Beer Reviews. So those, and Jay's beer reviews. Those guys kind of got me interested in doing beer reviews, and so I started doing my own thing. And but it was really my own thing because everyone else was just doing beers in general. And so I said, why don't I do something that's more different than all these other beer reviewers that are out there? Why don't I just focus on beers from New England? And that's what I did. So in one respect, I love it because there's so much happening in the New England beer scene. here in New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, whatever. There's just so much going on. But at the same time, people say to me, why don't you review Stone this? Or why don't you review, example, Dogfish Head or something like that. I said, well, it's not New England beer. I want to do a beer from New England. So I get some people, so people from California or Utah or Colorado may not watch my
Uh-oh. Yeah, we're getting some static. I'm not sure what's going on. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. I can hear you fine.
You were kind of fading out. It was kind of going into auto-tune. Are you with me?
No, I see you and I see myself on the screen, so I don't know. What I'm saying is that I felt that New England is an area of the country which has its own kind of personality overall. I mean, if you live in New England, it's one designation. I mean, you're in the Ozarks, but what covers the Ozarks? Several states? I don't know. But New England, everyone knows the six New England states are Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. So that's where my focus is because I've lived here all my life, and so I figured, well, why not? I'll give it a shot.
Well, the Ozarks, to be technical, is parts of southwest Missouri and parts of northwest Arkansas.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what? I see what you're trying to do, and that makes sense. But I've seen other folks call themselves a specific state beer review, but they still review beers from other states.
Yeah, I thought about it because when I went to NEBR, say it fast. I'm talking, you're playing with words here, but if you say it really fast, say it really fast. NEBR. Any beer. If I really wanted to kind of stretch it a bit, I suppose I could review any beer. But I guess my focus, I've developed this kind of following and developed my marketing, whatever you want to call it, my whole presentation style on being a New England beer reviewer. But it's not that I don't only, but a lot of people who watch my reviews should know that I don't only drink New England beers. I mean, one of my favorite beers in the world is St. Bernardus Apt 12. I can drink that. I love that beer. And there's a lot of these Belgian type beers or Trappist ale.
Oh, no, here we go. Jeff, we're having some audio issues. I'm not sure. There you go. Yeah, I lost you for a second. So anyway, we might have to cut this short, but I do want to get back to the whiskey before we have to do that. What other flavors are you noticing now after you've let that sit a little bit?
I'm picking up the caramel mainly. I'm really, the alcohol is a bit potent on this. I don't think it's a really, let me see.
Well, I'm having some technical difficulties with Jeff. I think I lost Jeff's audio there and his picture froze up. I'm not sure what's going on. Jeff,
well,
back. There you go. Are you back?
Yeah, I'm seeing you loud and clear. It must be
okay.
Here.
Now I can hear you. Keep talking about the whiskey now. And he's gone again. So let me tell you a bit about my whiskey. I've got the classic wild turkey. This turkey isn't smooth, isn't necessarily nuanced, but it is a classic. It is what it is. I don't typically drink a lot of highballs, but when I get a proper glass, I do like to have one. And this thing, I'm using a gourmet or a small batch, whatever you call it, a ginger beer, the Bundaberg, and this thing is awesome. It has very strong ginger notes that complements as well. Having some neat, or not neat, but on the rocks. I'm not drinking it neat now. Drinking it on the rocks. Again, it's not the smoothest of bourbons out there, but it's very distinctive. I do get frustrated when I see younger folks really disrespect the wild turkey because it is a classic. I mean, there is the rare breed, there's the Russell's Reserve, there are some smoother versions of, but there is something special about the original 101. Jeff, can you chime back in? Can you hear me at all?
I can hear you loud and clear. I can see you perfectly. So I'm
Okay,
not
there
sure
you
what
go.
the issue is.
Let's see if you can talk a little bit about your whiskey again.
But it's got a nice caramel sweetness
There
to
you
it.
go.
But at the same time, it's a really alcohol bite. I mean, that's a warming sensation. I'm feeling it in my throat and chest.
Now,
It's,
are you feeling any rye spiciness? You should be getting some spicy notes from that Canadian
I
whiskey.
am again.
Oh, Lord, I love technical difficulty. There we go. Are you back? I'm losing Jeff. Jeff, can you hear me? He froze up on me. So, hey, anyway, hey, this kind of shit happens from time. I hope y'all can hear me out there. I want to talk some whiskey with Jeff. We're going to post this to our group, Drinking Whiskey. Yeah, you know what? When things get seriously crazy or when the audio gets real bad, I will delete the videos. I've done that before. But if you can kind of, I try to keep talking when I lost Jeff so you can kind of have an idea what's going on. Jeff, are you back with me again?
I can see you. Can you see me?
Yep. Okay. Hey, Jeff, we're having some technical difficulties for some reason, but give me some final notes on that whiskey.
Yeah, I'll try to make it quick. I mean, it's very smooth. It's got some bite to it. It's got a real sweet character to it, but at the same time, a very warming alcohol bite to it. I mean, I enjoy it. It's a beer. I'm sorry, it's a whiskey that I would probably try again.
Well, that's very nice. Now, typically, Jeff, you like to buy the small bottles of whiskey,
Yeah.
right?
In this, every now and then, if I see something on sale, I will buy a bigger bottle like this one. But for the most part, I like to buy the nipper bottles, the 99-cent or $2 bottles of little one-shot type beers. Whiskeys. And my local liquor stores have a lot of those in stock. So it's a way for me to try stuff out because I gotta say, you're far ahead of me as far as understanding the innuendo of whiskey. It's an area I've just only kind of gotten into in the last year. So in one sense, people might look at me and say, this guy's a buffoon. But when I listen to your reviews or hear you talk about it, I know you have a keen understanding of whiskey, and I'd like to get to that level eventually, but I'm not there yet.
Well, I mean, it's just a lot of drinking. I've been drinking whiskey as long as I've been drinking beer. So, but yeah, again, for me, I look at whiskey the same way that I approach craft beer, which is more from the end of passion rather than the technical side, where a lot of beer reviewers and whiskey reviewers concentrate on the technical end. I try to go to the other side. I'm more about the passion of it all. So anyway, I want to thank Jeff for joining me at the pub for this session of whiskey and a little bit of beer talk because we cover it all here, baby. So I'm coming to Beer Whisperer. I want to thank Jeff for joining me for this session, and we'll talk to you later.